I don't think Harry thinks things through. It's his nature just to press a nuclear button.
He seems to think that Camilla was leaking stories, was this Machiavellian character. Dangerous in what ways? She's not some sort of assassin.
I asked him about Camilla and his face darkened. Everyone treats her like a goddess, but in fact, she's the wicked stepmother.
Harry has a pretty mechanistic view of the mass media, that was all a big conspiracy.
I think it was unfortunate that Jeremy and Piers were at that lunch. Piers had been openly extremely hostile to Meghan and Harry. I don't know why they were invited.
Camilla now is no longer somebody who's hiding under a rock. She's going to have favourite journalists. She can do a little bit of political manoeuvring with people like Piers Morgan and Jeremy Clarkson. She's defining her court.
He has to move on from never getting over his mother's death. He has to move on from casting Camilla as the wicked stepmother.
Meghan seemed to be taking to it like a duck to water. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
I watched Channel 4's Queen Camilla The Wicked Stepmother, and I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not going to give it all up front, but I'll say it was a lot more pro-Camilla than I expected. And I walked away with yet another reminder to just read Spare. Just read Spare if you want the truth. In this documentary, they explored how Camilla went from the most hated woman in the UK to being the queen and being beloved. Now, I think they were putting 20 on 10 with how beloved Queen Camilla is. I feel like for the most part, people just are like, she's going to be here. We may as well not ruin our fun. And monarchists really want the fantasy, so they had to buy into it. And unfortunately, she's part of the package. I really feel like that was the incentive behind people just starting to support her anyway. I don't know that there's any real fandom behind Camilla. I think it's people who are just relenting and they're acquiescing to what is already in front of them and they can't change it. So why ruin their own fun? That's my personal opinion. As far as the people they chose to participate in this documentary, it told me everything I needed to know. And while the title is Wicked Stepmother, there's an integral piece of punctuation there. That question mark packs a punch, and the intent is to change your mind. That's how I feel. While they did present both sides of the argument, she's a wicked stepmother, her ascent was tainted, she's corrupt, versus she was just a woman caught in a situation, she made some bad decisions, but overall she's a good person. They kind of tipped the scales on both sides, but I feel like their choices and participants really spoke to their intent behind this documentary. Kudos to Patrick Jeffson and Charles Ray for holding it down, and kudos to Andrew Morton and even Jenny Bond for having a couple of moments of clarity. But for the most part, this was a pro-Camilla documentary with a salacious title. I have a lot more thoughts, so let's get into it. Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about Channel 4's Queen Camilla, the Wicked Stepmother. Now, before we get into that, if you haven't already, please feel free to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and please don't forget to share so more people can find us. I'm going to jump right in. This documentary doesn't take a whole lot of dissection. There's not a lot to it. They gave us the background of Camilla, their love story, her and Charles, and they kind of skipped quickly past her entanglement with Charles while he was married to Diana. I was not a fan of how they treated Charles and Diana's marriage as more of like a happenstance that was just unfortunate. And although Charles was married to somebody, she was cool, she was cute or whatever, she had some nice outfits, although he was married, he was still missing his one true love. And this is really about love prevailing. At the end, they actually said love wins. The fact that they had the nerve to mow over Charles and Camilla's infidelity as if it was just like, oh, an unfortunate circumstance. And, oh, Diana was all right. She didn't want to live a lie or whatever, but I mean, they all moved on eventually. Unfortunately, Diana died or whatever, but we had to work on Camilla's reputation. Like, there was just this lack of empathy and this dismissive undercurrent that was just present throughout the entire documentary. The only time I did not feel that dismissiveness was present was when Patrick Jeffson, Diana's former private secretary, or Charles Ray were sharing. They were really the only two that I felt like were trying to speak to the truth. Andrew Morton also participated in that. I felt like he did clarify a couple of things and he did advocate for the truth. But I felt like overall, everyone else teetered the line or they were outright pro-Camilla. I was a little surprised. With a title like that, I was surprised, especially after the Secret Millions documentary. I thought that we were going to get a little bit more truth, but the way they skirted over Charles and Diana's marriage was so insulting and so minimizing. Diana was a person. She was not just a roadblock to a love story. She was a person who married a man she fell in love with. And when she married that man, he spent years mentally and emotionally abusing her. And Camilla was a large part of that. Even when Diana confronted her, she said, "You have the adoration of the world. Every man in the world wants to be with you. You have 2 boys. Why can't I just have this?" And this was that lady's husband. And they just skipped right past it. They acted as if because Diana, the wronged party in this, the wife of a cheating husband, speaking her truth and sharing her feelings, her experiences, the real experience that she had, was the problem. And because she shared her feelings, she was the wrong party for putting the blame on Camilla. No, Camilla laid down and opened her legs to a married man, and that married man was just as foolish and even more responsible because he cheated on his wife and got with the heifer. Charles was the one who chose to step on his wife, and however Diana handled that was well within her right. She should have done a lot more. I'm gonna be real. Both Camilla and Charles should have got a boot in the face. And honestly, with the way both of them look, it only would have helped. This documentary acted as if Diana was in the wrong for sharing her feelings. And because she shared her feelings when she should have been cheated on in private, she should have suffered in silence. But because she shared her feelings, then she was in the wrong for turning the public against Camilla. They even managed to skirt over Diana's death. They even treated it as a roadblock to Camilla's reputation rehab. For those of you on Patreon, you will see, or probably already have seen, my authentic reaction to that. I paused the documentary in the moment. I said, "No, wait a minute. You guys are treating a death as if it is a roadblock." I really couldn't believe the lack of empathy in this documentary, for a number of reasons. But the way they skirted past the infidelity and how long that went on and how bad it was. Do y'all realize Camilla left her ratty-tatty nightgown in Diana's bed at Highgrove? She was not a reticent participant. She was not this woman that was like, "Oh, I love you. I'm so conflicted." She wasn't conflicted at all. As a matter of fact, Camilla was holding court at Highgrove. That was practically her home. She was there all the time with Charles, and that man was married. But the documentary would have you believe that Diana was the wrong party because she had the nerve to talk about how her cheating, dismissive, minimizing, and emotionally abusive husband eroded her mental health. She's the one that's wrong. And his willing Rottweiler participant is just as wrong because she was also cheating on her husband, who was also cheating on her. See, the only person innocent in that whole fiasco was Diana, because Andrew and Camilla had an understanding. I mean, they pretty much let us know they had an understanding. Charles was also a willing participant. And they want us to feel like Charles is a victim of his circumstances because he wasn't allowed to marry the woman he wanted in the first place. First of all, you were born a prince. You were born with a duty. You already know what it was. You have to operate within that establishment. And no, it's not always going to be great. But in the same way y'all always love telling Harry and Meghan, you should have done your duty. You should have suffered in silence. You should have just dealt with it for the sake of the monarchy. Y'all can't tell Charles the same thing? You eroded your entire legacy because you couldn't keep your loins in check.
Queen felt that Camilla should leave the stage. Her presence was doing damage to the monarchy, and she wanted her gone. Not yesterday, not the day before, but forever.
When it comes to knowing what's really going on in that family, start with Spare or Diana, Her True Story. These are the 2 books you need to be reading. I was surprised at the callousness of this documentary. Now, again, Patrick Jeffson was holding it down. He was being very clear about Diana was the wronged party. She didn't deserve that. She had a lot of courage. She stood up to Camilla. He was the only one that was really pushing for the truth. Andrew Morton also participated in that a little bit, but he was a little bit more middle of the road than I would have preferred, especially as the person who wrote her biography. I was a little surprised that he wasn't more vocal in defending and protecting her in this, but he's made a couple of questionable decisions. And that's just, it is what it is. So I didn't have a lot of expectations when I saw he participated in it either. And Charles Ray was really the only one that was defending Harry as well, because when it came down to them discussing Harry being called a drug addict and that story coming out that he went to rehab and that Charles, the loving father, sent him to rehab, Charles Ray was really the only one that was like, This was spin. It wasn't true. This was false.
Harry's drug shame. Prince admits, I smoked pot at Highgrove.
It quoted a family friend as the source.
This was spin. This had not happened, as they said. Harry had gone to this drugs rehabilitation place 2 or 3 weeks beforehand on a visit. Now, it was spun then to try and show people that, don't worry, Dad's taking care of
False.
it.
They lied to protect their image. They lied on Harry. And Robert Jobson actually called the news of the world spin and their behavior, he actually called it brilliant.
It was a brilliant piece of spin and clever journalism by the news of the world. And they then spun it to make Charles look as good as possible.
As Harry tells it, he was a total stitch-up. Yes, Harry's taken drugs, but he didn't do the rehab. The story was basically fictitious.
I was just like, you can't get any lower. There were some people who really straddled the fence, and I was surprised that Tom Quinn was one of them. It was Tom Quinn, Jenny Bond, Charles Ray, and Andrew Morton. They were the ones that was kind of middle ground that were like, okay, I could kind of see it one way or the other, but this is just what happened. As far as the rest of them, Petronella Wyatt, which I have something to say about her I'm going to wait on her. I'm going to let her be last. Petronella Wyatt, Robert Jobson sitting up looking like Jabba the Hutt, but he got all the opinions in the world. I didn't have a lot of expectations about Robert Jobson. I'm not a fan of his. If you've been here long enough, then you know I don't have to beat a dead horse. But the fact that that man, out of his rusty, crusty mouth, said that Harry exaggerates or has severe misunderstanding of how the palace works, I said, you have to be a whole fool to say that a man born into the royal family knows less about how the palace works than you do as an outsider. Yes, you have some sort of an in because you're a reporter and you've been orbiting the royal family for your entire career. I get that, but you will never have more insight into how the palace works than an actual royal family member. See, this is when y'all step outside of yourself and get a little bit too much dip on your chip. Even Camilla can't validate you to that extent because she was not born into it. Harry was. So if anybody understood how it works and is willing to tell the truth, I would trust Harry, not Jabba the Hutt Jobson.
Harry has got a blinkered view about how the media works, but also the way the palace works. I mean, the idea that Camilla is orchestrating these leaks is a nonsense.
Robert Jobson set his big ass up there and tried to gaslight Harry. And the fact of the matter is, he did this in present day, after Spare, after Harry and Meghan the docuseries, after the Oprah interview. He was willing to try and gaslight Harry. And we all know the truth. And he knows we know the truth. And he still tried his hand to gaslight us. If he's willing to go that far to minimize Harry's experience, what do you think they were doing behind the scenes before the world knew the truth? This documentary was just another testament to why you should read Spare or listen to the audiobook. Because at the end of the day, they were still trying to minimize Harry's experience. They were still trying to gaslight the world and continue to gaslight Harry. Oh, he doesn't know how this works. Georgie Grage, he even tried to say, oh, well, he'd be surprised at what Camilla could say. Let her say it. Clearly, Harry's not afraid. And as a matter of fact, he got 400 other pages sitting on ice. So tell Camilla to speak her side. Please do. So if anybody was going to dispel him, they would have done it already.
I think Camilla's always been pretty reticent and professional. My goodness, what she could say.
As far as Petronella Wyatt, she is more than welcome to defend her friend. That's her friend. I would not expect her to do anything else. But part of the way she was speaking of Camilla was almost lustful. At one point, I was like, Petronella, relax. Okay, girl, we get it. Camilla's great. Okay. But that was already weird. It went from being weird to irritating the heck out of me. There's a few moments when Petronella Wyatt speaks out of the side of her mouth, and I was so irritated, I wanted to reach through this screen and choke her. I was so disgusted with her. I was shocked that she would go that far. Yes, defend your friend, honey, do what you need to do. But when you start talking about somebody need to get over their mother's death, you are in the wrong. Hell ain't hot enough for people like that.
He has to move on from never getting over his mother's death. He has to move on from casting Camilla as the wicked stepmother.
The people who support Camilla are soulless. They all have that commonality. They're all soulless. When she described Harry as impulsive and willing to go nuclear without any kind of forethought, Harry is an adult. You really think that he was able to just hit print on a book out of spite? No. This took a lot of forethought, took a lot of work. He spoke his truth. Harry has been living his life for 4 decades. He's been a royal for 4 decades. He's been sitting on these stories his whole life. He has been withholding speaking up his whole life. And until he decided to step back, and until he decided to call it out and be transparent and really equip the world with knowledge of what was really going on, he was holding in those secrets. I don't think anything he said so far has been without forethought. As a matter of fact, he's been thinking about it for years. And I feel like the way that he expressed himself, not only in Spare, but in all of the interviews surrounding Spare, as well as Harry, Meghan, the docuseries, as well as the Oprah interview, I feel like he was very well spoken. And it was very clear that not only did he choose his words wisely, he still acted in the best interest of the monarchy by protecting them from saying more, because he absolutely should have. And the fact that he didn't, I would quit poking the bear if I were y'all. You're not in a position to say what state of mind Harry acts from, because you don't know Harry like that. And then secondly, Petronella Wyatt said that she thinks Harry needs to get over his mother's death. See, if she took a boot to the face, people would say it was wrong, but it wouldn't be. Because how dare you say somebody needs to get over their mother's death? This is what I mean when I say the people who support Camilla have no empathy. This is what I mean by that, because she actually, out of her raggedy mouth, said he needed to get over his mother's death. In Spare, Prince Harry documents quite well his journey to processing his mother's death. And that's something that will actually take a lifetime to process. Processing the death of a parent or grandparent or a child, that's something that takes forever. You actually never really heal. You just learn to live with the absence of their presence. But that's not something you can just get over. And Prince Harry has every right in the world to talk about his mother as much or as little as he wants to. And Petronella Wyatt shouldn't have anything to say about that. That is not her place. She overstepped a serious boundary. I was surprised she went that far. That came straight from the mouth of Camilla. You cannot convince me otherwise. But she actually said Harry needed to get over his mother's death. I just couldn't believe the level of depravity that witch was willing to show on this documentary. Aside from it being about a wicked stepmother, it's clearly about a wicked stepmother and her wicked royal court. It's clearly about her wicked minions. Because what do you mean you sitting up looking like Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas talking about somebody need to get over their mother's death? First of all, you need to check your lust for your friend, because the whole documentary, Petronella is like, Camilla's so sexy. First of all, her and Angela Levin were just passing out sexies and beautifuls like it was nothing. Ma'am, we are not at the strip club. Please stop passing out these, they're sexy, they're beautiful, they were attractive and sophisticated out like $1 bills. I'm not buying it. Several times they pointed at somebody and said they were beautiful, and I had to pause and put on my glasses. I said, now wait, is the beautiful in the room with us right now? They described Camilla as beautiful and sexy. Her great-grandmother is beautiful and sexy. Andrew Parker Bowles as beautiful and sexy, or handsome and sexy. And I said, now wait a minute. I'll tolerate a lot, but damn it, I won't tolerate outright lies. None of those people were beautiful. None of those people were sexy or raised at a petting zoo. What do you mean these are some sexy, beautiful people? Every time they said, oh, they were sexy and beautiful, I'm gearing up to see sexy and beautiful, and then they put Camilla on my screen. First of all, it was a jump scare. Don't trick me like that. But then secondly, they had the nerve to pull that with Andrew Parker Bowles, who looks like somebody from The Hills Have Eyes. Are you kidding me? They were frivolously passing out beautifuls and sexies like it was nobody's business. That right there undermined their credibility out the gate. Because what do you mean you think Camilla's beautiful? I have to question your judgment from this point forward. Talking about Charles was a sex symbol, I said, make it stop. My world was spinning. I said, okay, clearly I need to stop right now. The reason I'm so disappointed in this documentary isn't really with the documentary, it's with myself. Because the moment they opened up this documentary calling Camilla beautiful, Charles a sex symbol, and Andrew Parker Bowles sexy, I should have turned it off. Now, Jenny Bond also had a moment where she somewhat defended Camilla from her own firsthand experience, saying that she can't say that Camilla works with the press to leak stories, because when she tried to reach out to Camilla, Camilla was very direct. That basically Camilla said she didn't have any interest in building a bond with any journalist. And she said, I took her at her word. But that could just be your account. She might not have had the interest in building a bond with you. That doesn't mean she didn't build a bond with other people, because clearly she has cozied up to Piers Morgan and Jeremy Clarkson. I felt like they shared a couple of instances where Camilla was at the head of a story leaking, but they didn't do their due diligence, and they absolutely didn't tell us anything that wasn't in Spare. As a matter of fact, they glossed over a lot of things. They did pull excerpts from Spare, but really it was only for the purpose of dispelling them or attempting to dispel them. And so I felt like if they were going to really make a slam slam dunk out of this documentary and really dissect the claims that Camilla is a wicked person or stepmother or whatever, they would have had a more even balance of people. They would have had people who were either pro Harry and Meghan or just simply objective that spoke about what they experienced, especially people who were there reporting in real time. And I don't feel like they gave us a balanced cast of people to interview for this topic. I also feel like they did this thing where they targeted Harry as the recipient of the evil stepmother, but they completely left William out. Mind you, Spare shared a lot of how Harry and William both felt about Camilla, but they omitted William from this. They pretty much glossed over him and they targeted Harry. And all the promo for the documentary is like, oh, Harry's wicked stepmother. So I felt like they immediately tried to throw Harry under the bus. And even at the end, they suggested that Camilla destiny swapped with Harry. And now Harry is the outsider and Camilla is beloved. First of all, Camilla is not beloved. People have just acquiesced to her being there. They know that she's going to be there, so they're not going to keep complaining about it because they want to have the fantasy. So there was no destiny swap. It was simply Harry stepped back with his wife. They moved on and they have an amazing life. They also didn't share any of that. They didn't share any of how Harry has moved on. They actually kind of made it look like, oh, he's out of the fold. We don't know what happened with him. They were very much dismissive of Harry and his very real feelings. And I was not a fan of that. Now, something they did cover was how the media hounded Meghan and how eventually it was just too much and they left. But I don't even feel like they touched on that enough and Camilla's participation in that. Camilla was caught on camera making fun of Meghan for touching her baby bump. Camilla was caught on camera making fun of Harry and Meghan at their wedding. Camilla was caught on camera making fun of Meghan, talking about, oh no, when they were getting ready to walk out for Charles's birthday right after their wedding. Do y'all remember that? So Camilla has been caught on camera several times being very nasty and rude to Meghan. They also didn't address how Camilla, Kate, and Sophie treated Meghan at the Queen's funeral. They skipped over all that very real evidence. And they pretty much made it look like Harry was just a sore loser. Harry was a sore loser. Yeah, his mom died. He needed to get over that. Grow up, kid, and we're done. They really worked to rehab Camilla's reputation, and this documentary was part of that. That was my takeaway. There were some other little nuggets here and there, but I was just put off by Petronella Wyatt and Robert Jobson. Those were the two that I walked away thinking even less of them, and I didn't know that was possible. It's like I unlocked a new level of disgust for them. My whole focus is making sure Diana, Harry, and Meghan are represented fairly. And as you can see, there is this attempt to romanticize Charles and Camilla and minimize the impact they had on Diana and even minimize Diana's legacy herself. And that to me is never going to fly. I know that the purpose of this was to discuss whether or not Camilla was a wicked stepmother to just Harry as if he doesn't have a brother. But at the end of the day, what they tried to do was wash away her sins in the public eye. And that is not going to fly. We all have memory. So as I said before, I'm only going to take this documentary with a grain of salt. I feel like I got all the truth I will ever need out of Spare. And should Harry decide to speak up again, I will be there to read it. I heard all I needed to hear directly from them. Anything else, I was open to hearing it, but I probably wasn't going to believe it, especially if it contradicted Harry, because Harry opened his mouth and shared his experience. He was very direct and very transparent. So I'm willing to believe a person's firsthand account over someone else's wicked minions. But that's just me. So I took this for what it was, and Harry brought out receipts. So everybody else who was contesting him were really doing so from a place of trying to preserve their job and their industry. They weren't doing it from a place of empathy, because none of the people defending Camilla have any empathy. They're all soulless cretins, and they just spent this documentary reminding us of that. She keeps some interesting company. And as Andrew Morton said, oh, she's building her court. She's welcome to do that, but it certainly represents her. It says a lot who she's chosen to be on her court. So that's all I have for y'all today. Those were my thoughts. I'm interested in hearing what you think about this documentary. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and please don't forget to share so more people can find us. Patreon, y'all saw the real full out reaction as we watched it together. I hope you enjoyed that. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment over there if you watched it live right along with me. But if you're here as well, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I will see y'all next time.